Today, we are diving into the story of Abigail. Now, this is a biblical figure whose actions give us a timeless masterclass in leadership, really. It's a story that shows you how to navigate a full-blown crisis with incredible wisdom and grace. So, let's get right into it. This quote, right here, it gets straight to the heart of Abigail's story. I mean, she was facing a life-or-death situation where just brute strength wasn't going to cut it. See, it was her wisdom and her courage that actually saved the day. And that offers a really powerful lesson for all of us. So how did this crisis even begin? Well, like a lot of messes in life, it all started with one person's foolishness. And in this particular story, that person's name was Nabal.
You know, the name Nabal itself tells you pretty much everything you need to know. In Hebrew, it literally means fool. And this wasn't just some unfortunate nickname. It perfectly described his arrogant, greedy character. I mean, can you imagine being Abigail, an incredibly intelligent woman, married to a man whose very name defined his awful nature? Her strong character was no doubt forged in the fire of dealing with that every single day.
Okay, so here's the setup. David, the future king of Israel, he and his men are on the run. While they're out in the wilderness, they basically act as a personal security force for Nabal's shepherds and all his flocks. So, when they send a very simple, very respectful request for some food, Nabal doesn't just say no, he hurls insults at them, basically asking, who does this David guy think he is? It was a massive, completely unforced error.
Yeah, insulting a powerful warrior like David? That was a grave mistake. Nabal's foolish pride just lit a very, very short fuse, and the whole situation was about to become absolutely catastrophic.
400. Just let that number sink in for a second. That's how many armed, battle-hardened men David immediately rounded up. He wasn't coming over to talk things out. Oh no, he was on the warpath, and he had sworn to get revenge for this deep insult. The scale of this response just shows you how serious things had gotten. David's fury was total. His orders were to leave no one standing. We're talking about an entire household that was just minutes away from being completely annihilated, all because of one man's stupid arrogance. This is the ticking time bomb that Abigail is about to walk right into.
And this is where the whole story pivots. A servant who knows the disaster that's coming completely bypasses the fool Nabal and runs straight to Abigail. And her response? Well, it is an absolute masterclass in crisis management.
Look at how she handles this. She doesn't panic. She doesn't waste a single second nagging or arguing with her husband. No. Instead, she assesses the threat. She acts decisively and she takes complete ownership of the problem. She chose wise action over a useless argument, quickly gathering this huge, generous offering and riding out to intercept David herself.
So, who exactly was this woman, Abigail? Well, the scriptures describe her as both intelligent and beautiful. Her wisdom was so well known, in fact, that Jewish tradition considers her one of just 7 female prophets. So this was a truly exceptional woman stuck in an exceptionally difficult spot.
All right, let's get to the most crucial moment of the story. This is the climax, right? This is where Abigail meets a furious David on the road, and she shows us how true humility is actually a position of incredible strength. Abigail's approach here is it's brilliant. She doesn't just apologize for her husband's behavior, she takes the blame on herself. And then she elevates the whole conversation. By appealing to David's destiny as the future king, she's essentially telling him, look, an act of petty vengeance is beneath you. This move masterfully disarms his anger by appealing to his better nature. And you know what? It worked. Instantly. David's rage just dissolves. He sees the wisdom in her words, and he actually blesses her for stopping him from making a terrible mistake. Her humility and her intelligence didn't just save her household, they saved David from himself. This is a perfect example of how humility can be a powerful tool, really a position of strength.
And the aftermath is just as dramatic. When Abigail gets home, she waits for Nabal to sober up from his partying, and then she tells him exactly how close they all came to total destruction. The shock is so great, he has what sounds like a stroke and becomes paralyzed. 10 days later, he's dead. As soon as David hears the news, he recognizes Abigail's incredible worth and immediately sends for her to be his wife.
So Abigail's story is incredible, right? But what's the practical takeaway? I mean, what can we learn from her actions that we can actually apply to our own lives, our own leadership challenges? Well, let's look at what we can call the Abigail Blueprint. This is really the core of her legacy. First, lead with wisdom, not raw emotion. Master the art of diplomacy to turn a bad situation around. When a crisis hits, act with boldness.
Always balance your strength with grace. And finally, trust that in the end, justice will prevail.
So, if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. Abigail completely redefines what we often think of as humility. For her, it wasn't about being passive or weak, not even close. It was an active, intelligent strategy. It was a position of profound strength that had the power to de-escalate a violent conflict and guide someone toward their better nature, even a vengeful warrior.
And that really leaves us with a question for ourselves, doesn't it? When you face your next crisis, which path are you going to choose? The path of foolish pride, like Nabal, or the blueprint of wise humility, like Abigail? The choice, as always, is yours.